Does the consumption of saturated fat mean that you're going to have high cholesterol? That's what we've been taught for many, many years, especially if you're in my generation. I was born in '75. I would consider myself to be Generation X. And as we grew up, well, we were told that fat is bad. And what happened was we went into a bunch of decades where a lot of the foods that were being sold to us were low fat. And what ended up happening is we had a bunch of foods that were really, really high in sugar. So now everybody's diabetic. So what goes on when you eat a lot of saturated fat? And this is a test that I did on myself and that I started many, many years ago, about 10 years ago, maybe even a little bit longer than that. So what I do is I don't vilify fat at all. I made this decision a long time ago. And I eat a lot of red meat, a lot of beef, and sometimes, I mean, there's been years where I would eat at least a pound of ground beef every single day. Now, I am very, very active. I do a lot of weight training. My days are active. I do a lot of cardiorespiratory endurance stuff. So I would consider myself to be very, very fit, and I train often. So that is another variable that I think we need to take into consideration here. But I want to share my results with you that I just got. So knowing that I eat a ton of saturated fat. Now, another little caveat to this is I eat high quality meat. In other words, I source my meat from a local farmer who grows their calves, their meat on pasture, and they don't spray it with any pesticides or anything. So I eat very, very clean. It would be like organic to the nth degree, to the 10th degree, like it's the best quality meat that I can find. So keep that in your mind as well. So I've been doing this for a very, very long time. And I've always had high cholesterol. Since I've been doing this, my cholesterol, my total cholesterol has been all the way up to 300, but it generally runs somewhere around 230-ish, right? So there was one year where it was up to like 300. And my LDL cholesterol is also high, so usually in the 160, 170 range, which is very high if you look at what what most doctors would consider to be just out of control. My HDL has always been very high, which is a good thing. They call that the good cholesterol. Although there's a bunch of debate around that. Is there such a thing as bad cholesterol and good cholesterol? This becomes a very, very controversial topic. But anyways, my HDL has always been very high. And then my triglycerides have always been very low, always under 100. So it's kind of a unique profile that most of the doctors, and I've had the same doctor for a long time now, but most doctors look at that profile and they scratch their head. Because usually, if you've got high LDL, if you have high cholesterol, you also have a low HDL, and you also have a very high triglyceride. That's kind of the normal profile. So when someone sees my profile, they don't know what to do with it. And it's always been a bit of a mystery. So now that it's been like a decade or more of me eating this way and tracking these numbers, I finally decided to have a calcium artery score test done on my heart. And what they do is they basically take an x-ray of your heart and they look at any sort of calcification in the arteries of your heart. And if you have some calcification, it's going to show up on this thing and it's going to give you a number. And you generally want a number 0. Okay, so if you've never had one done before, you want a 0. So I went and I did it, and I was a little bit nervous because I wasn't 100% sure. I was kind of taking a gamble by putting my faith in Mother Nature and only eating real food and not avoiding saturated fat, that I was a little bit afraid that maybe I was going to have some calcification there. And my doctor thought the same thing. And I got my results back, and it was 0. So the chances of me having a heart attack, despite having this sort of strange profile, is very, very low. Now I'm going to continue to run with this. Think what you will, and I'm not a doctor and I'm not recommending that you follow this to the way that I'm following it, but I eat very high quality meat. I eat mostly real food, meaning I don't eat a lot of processed refined stuff. Every once in a while I will. I'm not perfect by any means. I eat a ton of saturated fat, but it's very high quality saturated fat. And I just wanted to share this with you because I also know a lot of other people who follow a very similar lifestyle that I do, who are very active, do a lot of strength training, a lot of endurance stuff, just stay really, really fit and eat this way, where we decide to not vilify fat, but instead focus on the quality of our foods, eating real food, high quality real food, and they have a very similar profile as me. So I'm not alone. And look, maybe this will be helpful for you to know that you're not alone either, if maybe you follow this kind of lifestyle. So if you follow that and you see those numbers, have a CAC score done, and you can just look that up on Google. And I'm willing to bet that if you've been doing this long enough, you probably have nothing to worry about if you have this profile. It would be a much worse profile if you had high cholesterol and high triglycerides and a low HDL and high LDL. And there's some other things that go into that as well. If your blood sugar is high, if your HbA1c is very high, all those things sort of compound into what they call metabolic syndrome. Now, look, I certainly don't have metabolic syndrome. In fact, I'm very, very lean, very, very fit, very, very healthy, except for that strange kind of profile. But again, I think everything is working as it should. And I would say that I'm probably healthier, despite having a few red marks on my labs. I'm probably more healthy than most of the people who are out there. So anyways, just want to share that with you. I think it's really interesting information. And to kind of give you this, this hopefully to help you to relax a little bit about eating saturated fat. I think there's enough research out there now to show that that was the wrong way to go. It was the wrong way to guide people, and there might even be some corruption out there that happened way back in the day when that whole thing shifted. I don't want to get into the politics of it, but it's sort of interesting if you do the research on it. But don't be afraid of real food. And when I say real food, I'm talking meat, veggies, nuts, seeds, and fruits. And then there's obviously different levels of quality within those categories of real food. You want to find the best ones possible. Get organic as much as you can. Find a local farmer who raises their food without spraying them with a bunch of glyphosate and chemicals and all kinds of other stuff, and that raise their cattle in a way that's humane and that has them out on grass. There's something to be said for eating high quality real food. If you want to be the healthiest version of yourself, and you're interested in staying really physically fit and really physically active as you get older, look, I've done this with so many people, and it works so well.